Okay, so now that we've created most of the basic components we need to have a basic level going in our world, we need to actually make some more levels in the game, because it's not going to be very fun if we only have one level for our player to play through. So, when we first started the series, we saved this scene, which contained all this stuff here, as level 1. So what we're going to do is go and start a new scene. So if we go to File up here, and a new scene, it'll give us a completely blank scene with nothing else in it. And we're just going to save this. So we're going to go File, Save Scene, and we're going to save it as, we'll call it just level 2. Nice and simple. So obviously we're missing a lot of stuff that we need in our world. Any of the ground pieces and stuff like that, they're going to be different from level to level, but we know we always want to have our camera, we want a player, we want our level manager, we want our UI stuff, we want all that kind of basic stuff to be in our game. So if we're going to use all that stuff over and over again, we're probably best making a prefab that can hold all of those things, and then we can just drag it in to start a new level whenever we want. So we're going to go back to our first level, and we can do that by just double clicking on the scene here. If we double click on that, we'll open it up, or you can go File and open a scene and open it up that way. So we've got a bunch of stuff here that we want to use to start off our game with. First of all, we're going to create a new empty object. So we're going to go up here, rather than right clicking on something and making it a child, we're going to go create here, and we're going to say create empty, and we're going to call this our level starter pack, we'll call it. And we're going to have a bunch of things that we want to put in here. So some stuff that we're going to need. Obviously, we're going to need the player. So let's drag the player into that. We have specific scripts attached to our camera. So we're going to need to bring that camera with us. Our canvas that holds all our UI elements and things like that, we're going to need that as well, obviously. So we're going to drag the canvas in. And when our canvas was first created, we also got this little event system object created, and that controls if we have any menus or anything like that. That controls how we can move up and down between menus. So although we don't have them at the moment, we eventually will. So we need to take that with us, because a canvas and an event system go kind of hand in hand together. So they're kind of the main things. Is there anything else we need if we look up here? I think that's pretty much all we need to bring with us. Everything else is kind of just various different elements that we use within the world. Okay, so that's fine. So now if we zoom back in here, first thing we want to do, actually I just realized what we should have done first was with our level starter pack, we should have made that be at 0, 0, so that everything kind of will go back to the start when we start new games. So let's just reset that back now. So I'm going to make these 4 things no longer a child, just by dragging them out like that, but they're right here, so they're nice and easy to sort back out again. So on our level starter pack, we'll set that to be 0, 0, 0. So it goes back to the very starting corner here. We're going to move our player back to the start as well, because we obviously don't want him always to be starting halfway through the level or anything like that. And our camera we're going to pull back as well, but obviously we want its Z value to remain at -10, so we were able to see things like that. So all of this is absolutely fine then. Those are the basic kind of things we needed to move. So let's make them a child of the level starter pack once again. And now that we have all the basics of that kind of all set up, we can go to our prefabs folder and drag our level starter pack into there like that. And now if we make any changes to our level starter, if we make any changes to our UI or anything like that, we can apply them to the prefab. But we have to remember that, for example, that will change where our player starts in every level. So we need to make sure that we remember that, and we might need to go and fix up our player at the player's starting point. Because at the moment, looking at this, our player is kind of floating in the air here like this. But that's okay for now, because we're kind of just setting up everything that we need in our level starter pack. Okay, so if we look in our prefab folder here, we've got kind of a lot of stuff going on. If I just collapse all these arrows, and we haven't actually added everything else in here yet. So we've got some, like the spider, we're going to want to reuse our spider guy. We'll want to reuse our green wiggle, our extra life pickups and our health pickup. We'll obviously want to reuse them. What else? Our spinning saw that's moving around, we'll obviously want to reuse that. And I think that's pretty much all the elements in place there now. So our little prefab folder here is starting to get a little kind of cramped up. So let's make a couple of folders just to organize this stuff out. So we're going to create a folder, and we're going to call this one level pieces, and we'll create another folder, create a folder that we'll call dangers, and another folder that we'll call enemies. So let's just move our enemies into the enemy folder first of all. So that's our spider and our green wiggle. So that'll be into our enemies folder. We put these spikes and spin saws and moving spin saw into our dangers folder. Then our level pieces will be all these bits of ground. So we'll take all these and we'll create another folder that we'll call interactive pieces, because we interact with them, like our checkpoint, our coins, our pickups and stuff like that. So we'll drag all that in here too. So into our interactive folder. Okay, so then we're left with these three up here, and they're kind of fine. We're not too worried about these being up here. We could create another folder. Actually, we'll create one more folder for particle effects, because we're probably going to end up with a few different ones of that for enemies. Is likely what you'd want to do. So we'll leave that as it is like that. But our level starter pack, we'll leave this up here because that's not really going to be having its own category. It's only going to be used as a one-off thing anyway. So that's fine. Okay, so we've got all this stuff kind of sorted out, and our prefab folder is all sorted out now. So if we were to save this just as it is, and then we'll go into our scenes and go into level 2 here. So what we can do is go into our prefabs folder, just grab our level start and drop it into our hierarchy here, and everything gets set up into the world here like this. I'm going to reactivate the background that I was using for the camera, because I prefer that kind of like that look where the background is following along with you and it looks like the ground and the background are moving at different kind of paces. So we have that there. So let's just quickly put some bits of ground in the world. So we've got a little bit of stuff for our player to stand on. That one's too high, isn't it? Just drag this down so it's below the camera line. And same with this one here. We're just adding just a little bit of ground for our player to have a little bit of fun with, or whatever you want to say. That's it. So obviously we could go ahead and start adding in coins and all that jazz, but I'm not going to start doing that here. It's just basically whatever kind of level you want to create, go ahead and start creating it. All we're just focusing on here now is how we're going from level to level. So now we can hit play here, and because we set up our level starter pack stuff, as soon as we start the game, we get our coins. Oh, our camera isn't following properly. Sorry. Because there's already a camera in the scene, we have two cameras being activated. So we can't work with two different cameras at once. So we need to delete the one that's already there. And now when we play the game, it'll actually follow along with the player just the way we want it to. So there we go. Running along like this. So what objects aren't set to a correct? Our player controller. Oh, we're missing one element from our level starter pack, of course, which is our level manager itself. So we'll go back into our first scene, because our first scene is kind of where we have everything set up at the moment. And if we find our level manager, I knew I was feeling like I was missing one thing in there. So here's our level manager. We'll drag this down to our level starter pack, and now we'll apply that change to the level starter pack itself. And you can see it took a second to update, but now if we go back to level 2, this time everything should be working fine, because I was wondering actually why the coins and the lives weren't working properly either for a second either. There we go, we got our music back and everything's back to working just the way it should be. Perfect. So now that we have the ability to add extra levels, we're obviously going to need to be able to switch between those levels. So let's create a way for our player to load up between one level and another.